Hello, welcome back. We are going to continue reading my story, Timothy. I have been so lazy. Oh my gosh, I just zoned out today. I was just talking to my mom, laying on the bed, watching, hold on, I'm going to look it up. Because they're some of my favorite things to put on when I'm just like staring at the TV. I have to find a new book to read, like in my personal time. But I was so tired. Timmy, are you kidding me? What are you? Oh, hold on. Timmy, look what he did. On the coffee table, I mean, I'm telling you, it's chaotic. There's like tea mugs on the, because people have been in and out. And anyway, there's boxes of chocolates on the coffee table. Anyway, he's knocking them off. Look what he did. Hold on, he's into something else. Hold on. Okay. Chaos. All right. So we're going to continue. I have uploading the second part of the magazine, and I know it's not as dishy. It's, it's a little more calm. It's honestly, I think it's good for sleeping too, personally. It was taking a long time to, the editing software was taking a really long time to export it, and it kept stopping on me, and it took literally all day, but now it's uploading. It's going to be up in like an hour and 43 minutes. Anyway, so here we go. Chapter 21 is entitled Ratted in Geneva. The morning sun was dancing across the waters of Lake Geneva as our Swiss Air flight floated down over the Alps to make a smooth landing on the tarmac at the international airport. From my first-class seat, I had watched the mountains slide by, seemingly so close below, with snow still decorating the highest peaks like icing on rows of cakes. Are you done? He's never done. My heart was light with anticipation. Or maybe it was my head that was light from the champagne that Swiss Air had been serving ever since we took off on the 8:15 a.m. flight from Heathrow. Man, these people drink champagne like... Oh my gosh, the kids left a big mess on the coffee table. They're just out here watching cartoons, having themselves a time. Oh yeah, I got distracted. I was telling you about a show. Oh my Lord, have mercy. I got to get up early and clean this house. It looks like, I don't know, a tornado went through it since yesterday. Okay, the show that I was watching, where is it? Oh. Hold on a second. He's trying to get a cookie. Okay. What I was watching is Worst Jobs in History with Tony Robinson. I think it's Tony Robinson. Yeah, it must be Tony Robinson. Anyway, and he just goes around and they show all these jobs throughout history that were just the worst of the worst, and it's just fun. It's good to sleep to as well. It's good to come in and out too. That and Antiques Roadshow. All right, let's try that again. So she's on the plane. They're coming into land in Switzerland. She's been champagne since 8 in the morning. And I was saying, my goodness, Never have I ever heard of so much champagne drinking in my whole life. But I mean, of course, I'm from a different social set. So champagne in my life, I don't even know if I've tasted champagne in my whole life, if I'm perfectly honest. I don't drink. Like, once in a blue moon, my man and I would get like a bottle of wine on a Friday night with a box of pizza. And then, like, neither of us grew up drinking, right? Like, we both grew up very religious. So we decided together. I mean, I would never drink outside of those pizza evenings, and neither would he. But then together we decided, let's stop, because we didn't want it to become really a part of our lives, just because of the way that we were raised. And anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you all this, but all that to say, I don't know if I have ever tasted champagne in my whole life. If you've ever watched the Muppets, The Great Muppet Caper, which I highly, highly recommend, and people who didn't, grow up watching the Muppets seem not to realize that the Muppet films back in the day were not really for kids. Like, kids liked them, but they were really more for adults, in my opinion, the humor. Anyway, what's her name? What? Diana? Hold on, I gotta look it up. Right, okay. It has freaking Diana Rigg. Anyway, there's this one scene where Fozzie is... Oh my gosh, Christine Nelson is in it. No way. Okay. John Cleese is in it. Oh, it's so great. I can't even tell you how good it is. Good night. All right. So, anyway, there's this scene where Fozzie and Kermit and Miss Piggy are at a really fancy supper club. And Fozzie's pouring sugar into a glass of champagne, and he's stirring it up, and he's saying, if you put enough sugar in this stuff, it tastes just like ginger ale. So maybe ginger ale is the closest I've ever gotten to champagne. Okay. It was September 1991, and I was going to spend my 33rd birthday with the Duchess of York and her father as part of the royal entourage on a visit to Switzerland, to Geneva, the city which Ian Fleming once listed, despite the legendary dullness of the Swiss, as among his 10 most exciting cities in the world. I want you to act as my lady-in-waiting, Sarah had said formally, then, unbending with a laugh. You'll have a whale of a time, I promise. My first royal tour. And for the first time, I became aware of the goldfish bowl in which the royal family lived for so much of their lives. It was not something I would want to do all the time. But for now, it was eat, drink, and be merry. The visit was... Oh, I'm just wondering if I could find some royalty magazines from this time. I wonder if we'd see her in them. Okay. The visit was to be from the 12th to the 15th of September, but Ronald had thoughtfully arranged for us all to go out for a couple of days beforehand. He wanted Sarah to have a private break prior to the official functions she was attending in her capacity as patron of the Motor Neuron Disease Association, one of her pet charities. The official party would arrive that evening. The Duchess of York, the two princesses, her secretary Jane Ambler, Nanny Alison Wardle, Inspector John Askew, Sarah's bodyguard, and another security officer. Prince Andrew was somewhere at sea again, aboard the HMS Edinburgh. Our host was a polo-playing friend of the Major's, a millionaire businessman named John Menconi, who owned a beautiful Schloss-style mansion in the village of Ascona, on the border of Lake... Maggiore? I don't know. Help me. He had paid for everything, including the chauffeur-driven Mercedes that was waiting for us at the airport. The village was 2 hours away. As we drew closer, spinning along the smooth lakeside highway, I could see the small white triangles of small sailing boats dotting the gunmetal waters, and behind them the glorious vista of the Alps rising to fill the entire horizon. Everything was so peaceful, I felt as if we had stepped out of our own time into another dimension. This is just wonderful. Instinctively, I squeezed Ronald's arm, and he smiled down at me, happy that I was in seventh heaven. Happy birthday, he said. Not quite yet, I joked. Don't make me old before my time. There's days to go yet. As we turned in through the big iron gates, my jaw dropped. The place was incredible. A wedding cake hewn out of stone, with soaring towers, rambling grass-covered balconies which descended to the lakeside in massive steps, and a private landing stage where a sleek-looking speedboat was moored. You certainly know the right people. I shook my head in awe as the driver brought the car to a halt outside the large mahogany front doors. Ronald's eyes crinkled in amusement. That's polo for you, he said. Do you think Sarah will like it? I don't see how she can fail to, I told him. A few days later, the Duchess of York saw it for herself as her motorcade swung in through the gates with sirens wailing and blue lights flashing on the accompanying police cars fore and aft. The Swiss do this sort of thing rather well, if noisily. The lakeside guest house had been newly decorated throughout for the 2-day royal presence, and everything was squeaky clean. A little unreal, I thought, because it contrasted easily with the traditional air of the building. But who was I to argue with the world when the world was suddenly our oyster? Nothing was too much trouble for our hosts, and if there seemed to be an unusual number of burly men with bulging jackets hanging around, then that was something I could live with. Ronald and I were staying in a separate lodge, reached by a small private walkway. To my annoyance, I found that yet again he had contrived to ensure that we shared the same bedroom. I mean, I feel like at this point she would know the drill. Like, I don't think she's actually surprised. I think she's just writing this for our benefit to be like, oh my goodness, I just couldn't believe it. Because if you really, really, didn't want that to happen, you'd be like, hey, here's the thing, I can't come. Or if you can't say no to a royal, then, you think that she would at least express like, no, I can't stay like this. Twin beds, at least. The last time I had shared a bed with the Duchess of York's father had been 2 months ago, and it would be the last time. But Ronald never gave up the chase. The persistence and possessiveness of the man were unrelenting. Why was I not firmer in demanding separate bedrooms? I have asked myself that question a score of times. The only rational answer is that when you find a virtual fait accompli on a VIP tour and you've already shared a bedroom with your erstwhile lover who happens to be the father of the royal guest, it all becomes rather difficult to make a scene. And somewhat academic, too. Whatever. As we were taken to our suite, a police launch roared up and moored off the landing. They're very light on security here, Ronald said, but they can't tight. Sorry, it's a little dark in here. I'm struggling to see. They're very tight on security here, Ronald said, but they can't afford not to be. We joined Sarah and our host for cocktails in the opulent, antique-filled drawing room before dinner, and I could see at once that she was not in a good mood. She had seen my suitcase being taken to our lodge, one of a set of Louis Vuitton luggage which Jim had bought me when our business and our marriage were thriving. Now she inquired, Dad's, how come Leslie's got such nice luggage? Her own, I must admit, was surprisingly tacky. I cut in. Oh, I had a nice husband who bought me things. What? Sarah said this in front of Leslie, but to her own father. That's really strange. Sarah's instant rejoinder was, I wish I had. I discovered how long it would be before that little wish came true. Oh, my Lord, I wondered how long. I'm so sorry, it's dark. I wondered, maybe I should turn on the light. I don't know, that might just be annoying. I wondered how long it would be before that little wish came true. Her tone was surprisingly sullen. I raised an eyebrow at Ronald. When he had a quiet moment, he murmured, She's not happy. Fred, Stephen Wyatt, is being a bore. She gave him the number here, and he's supposed to have called her, but he hasn't. So much for the Texan reliability. I wondered where Stephen Wyatt was just then. It was too early for tramps. At least Beatrice and Eugenie were in their element. The princesses had been given a special nursery at one end of the house filled with toys and games, and they had a wonderful time running riot through the corridors and up and down the staircases. When Bea saw me, she squealed, Ooh, Leslie, why are you here? I'm celebrating my birthday, darling, I told her. Oh, she said, how old are you? Everyone laughed, and Sarah said, Never you mind. Go and play upstairs. But the little girl persisted. What are you doing? Do you want to go swimming? Beatrice was the inquisitive one, always asking questions. It's a bit cold in the lake, isn't it? I shivered theatrically. No, there's a pool here, cried the 3-year-old in triumph. And there was, too, a magnificent indoor pool on the top floor. On the top floor? Well, maybe tomorrow. Finally, the cruncher. Do you want to come and see my dolls now? What could I say but yes? I followed her up to the nursery with Allison and spent the next 15 minutes admiring the various toys and dolls which seemed to be everywhere. The Manconis had left nothing to chance. The phone had remained stubbornly silent, but Sarah relaxed as the evening wore on. She had lost a lot of weight and was absolutely stunning in a designer outfit of pale blue over a navy silk blouse. Just before we went to dinner, I told her how great she looked, and her eyes sparkled with pleasure. Everyone knows I've got a weight problem, she said. I can put it on so quickly if I let myself go. She glanced quickly across the room at our hostess, who was enviously slim and chic. Do you think I'm fatter than she is, Leslie? Should I lose any more weight? There was at least a stone in it, but Sarah was always terribly sensitive about her weight, and I was mindful that her father had told me how hurt she had been about the unkind press jibes aimed at skewering the Duchess of York. Sarah was saying, but then I think I'll show him, and I go on a great big diet. I'm very determined when I have to be. I believe you, I said, but you look fine, absolutely terrific. You've seen me. Do you think I've got a lot of cellulite? You've got to be truthful. At that time, I could be. No, honest, you're fine. I hate it when I get, you're fine. It's like... She looked relieved. You know my secret? I always drink heaps of water. At that moment, Jane Ambler came up and bobbed in a brief curtsy. I thought you would like to know that dinner will be in 5 minutes, ma'am, she said. Ma'am? I frowned in uncertainty. Was I supposed to call her that? She read my thoughts. No, I'm Sarah to you, and always will be. Thank you, I said. That's very nice. I meant it too. It made me realize how close we had grown to each other, and how much I was able to be myself. And that was the very best birthday present I could have asked for. Breakfast next morning was served on the upper patio overlooking the lake. The sun was out, the air was crisp and dry, and you could feel it filling your lungs and driving the cobwebs away. I sat alone as Ronald was indoors discussing plans for a forthcoming polo match with John Manconi. I thought to myself, now I really do feel lucky. Maids moved silently around, serving fresh, warm croissants and crisp rolls with silver jugs of coffee and hot chocolate. Oh, that sounds heavenly. I'm telling you, there's nothing I like more than a warm bun and a hot chocolate. Oh, I could just, if I was rich, that's the kind of life I would lead. Like, I don't care about anything else. I would just have such good food. Oh, I would just live in the lap of luxury when it came to food, and then I would have a personal trainer to keep me fit. Oh, I mean, croissants and hot coffee and hot chocolate, that's something I can make right now. Sarah came out refreshed and smiling and sat down next to me. Ronald would tell me later that she had had a long call from Wyatt during the night. Whatever they had said, it had made the sun come out for her. Isn't this lovely? She waved an expansive hand at the incredible view. The yachts were out again, 100 white pocket handkerchiefs waving in salute, and the lake shimmered blue in the sunlight. I nodded. It's beautiful. She looked at me questioningly. Is something wrong? I hesitated. Just the old business, you know, with Ronald. It just still doesn't seem right. I just feel so uncomfortable with the way he behaves towards me. She nodded in sympathy and understanding. I've been through it too, you know. Patty and I were together 4 years. Of course. Patty McNally was the charismatic Formula One racing manager who had captured Sarah Ferguson's heart, even though he was 22 years older than she was, with thinning hair and spectacles, and could hardly be labeled an Adonis. But his sense of fun and adventure appealed to women, and Sarah fell under his spell. She left him when he declined to marry her. I heaved a mock sigh. Older men. What can you do with them? She smiled wryly. I know. I looked her full in the face. So tell me, how do you really feel about us, Ronald and me, knowing that we've been, well, intimate together? There was a long silence. Sarah turned away and stared out over the lake. The police launch was chugging around 100 yards offshore in slow, lazy circles, with watchful eyes at the wheel. At last she said, I don't think we should talk about it, but whatever you do, don't be pressurized. Dad's is like a little boy, and when he lost Mummy, I had to really take him under my wing. Yes, I see. But you know that I can never give him all he wants from me. I know, said Sarah, but he's desperately in love with you. Look, I've always been honest with him. I've always told him I can't be any more to him than I am now. I won't be his wife. Sarah sighed, and there was sadness in her voice when she finally said, I don't know how you're going to work it out, but you've got to think long and hard about what you're going to do. On the first evening, we roared out to a local restaurant in 3 limousines, complete with our faithful police escort. When the Duchess of York is in town, nobody sleeps, I said jocularly. The restaurant was family-owned, justly proud of its cooking, and the Manconis were obviously well known, judging by the welcome we received. A large round table was waiting for us, set for 12. A menu had been prepared, a home-cooked pasta and local Swiss white wine, and the atmosphere was just marvelous. It was a noisy night, and grew more animated as the wine flowed. At the end, as the bill was presented and Mr. Manconi reached into his pocket for his wallet, Sarah held up an imperious hand. My treat, she said. There were murmurs of protest, but she reached over and took the bill from its saucer. Sometimes I thought I would never fathom his daughter, the strange mix of... Oh, I'm so bad at this word. Parsimony? Calculated avarice, and sudden spontaneous acts of generosity. On the eve of my birthday, we dined at the Manconi's private residence. The wine flowed, and our spirits lightened by the minute. We returned to the Schloss, feeling just that way. I'm schlossed, as I giggled to everyone willing to listen to my alcohol-induced wit. Me too, Sarah echoed. Let's open some wine. Ronald headed for the kitchen as our hosts diplomatically made their excuses and retired to bed. There was the happy sound of exploding corks, and he returned with a beaming smile writ large on his craggy features, and 2 bottles of chilled white wine. The party was warming up. Inspector John Askew and Jane Ambler sat at a table in one corner, sipping nothing stronger than orange juice. Neither of them ever lost sight of their position within the household, but the rest of us, well, to put it mildly, Sarah and I got absolutely ratted, her own word for pie-eyed. Right, the Duchess of York shouted. Everyone's got to tell a joke. I'll start. And she launched into a long, shaggy dog story, which had us in hysterics. Mainly it had to do with her hiding behind a curtain, peering out and pulling funny faces. And although Sarah has a reputation for earthy humor, I can promise that this was clean, simple fun with no bad language or vulgarity. I just wish I could remember the joke or the punchline, but I'm sorry, I can't. I think it had something to do with a comedian appearing in an amateur contest, but don't hold me to it. At the end, she tripped merrily out of the room in search of a fresh bottle, and Ronald turned to me, his face beaming. This is the first time in months I've seen my old Sarah back. I haven't seen her look so happy for ages. She's really letting her hair down, and I haven't seen her doing this since she's been married to Andrew. The jokes flowed thick and fast and became sillier by the minute. None of us ladies wanted to go to bed. We were having too good a time. We could have gone on till dawn if Ronald, suddenly reverting to being a real old-fashioned father, had not suddenly boomed, Right, girls, go to bed, it's late, and we'll all have hangovers. He was right. Next morning, our heads were thumping loud enough to be heard clear across the lake. Still in my pajamas, I was sitting on the patio when nursing my fifth cup of coffee, when Sarah came along the private walkway carrying something in her hand. Happy birthday, she intoned in a weak voice, and threw it at me with a limp hand. It was a colorful streamer, but it could only land somewhat pathetically several feet from me. Oh dear, is your head as bad as mine? Worse. She produced a package wrapped in colorful paper and passed it to me. Inside nestled a gift box of Florist bath oils, lotions, bath oils, lotions, perfumes, and soaps. Actually freebies, as Ronald happened to mention later. But the thought was there, and I wasn't complaining, because in London they had presented me with a magnificent gift, a superb video camera, with which to record the trip. A joint gift from us, Sarah had said, kissing me. These Fergusons were unbelievable. She gave me a birthday card that was typical Sarah. On the outside, a cartoon of Buckingham Palace, with the words, Her Majesty isn't sending you a telegram this year, but, and inside, she would like you to know she's counting. happy birthday in blue ink. She had signed it, Love, Sarah. In addition to the jokey card, she gave me a second one, a genuine happy birthday. In the lounge, they had hung out a banner with Happy Birthday, Leslie, inscribed on it in large capitals. We stayed in pajamas and dressing gowns all morning, slowly recovering, helped by an unexpected cabaret from little Eugenie, who rushed in, wrapped in sticky tape, wound around her body and legs like a miniature Egyptian mummy. Before we left, we took on an exhilarating speedboat trip across the lake, which took our breath away. Sarah had changed into a swimming costume and lay back on her seat, drinking in the sun and the spray. Occasionally, she pinched her thighs, looked at me, and groaned. The curse of cellulite. A walkie-talkie message was relayed through to our police bodyguard on the boat. Could we return at once to the jetty? Little Beatrice was missing her mummy. The speedboat made for the shore, and one squealing child was deposited in her mother's arms before we headed back, constantly shadowed by the police launch. Looking at Sarah cuddling her daughter and laughing out loud as they shared some childish joke together, I knew that there was somebody who might only reserve quality time for her children, but who was a loving mother all the same. All too soon, the 2 stolen days were over, and duty called. The motorcade appeared promptly at 10 a.m., and by now word was spreading that someone special had been staying at the village. As I climbed into the big official car, I had a renewed glimpse of life in the goldfish bowl. The faces staring in through the window, idly curious, the pointing fingers, the traffic being stopped to make way for the royal convoy. As I watched, a subtle change came over her, a metamorphosis that was intangible yet blindingly obvious. She became the Duchess of York. Her posture changed. She stiffened in her seat. Even her features tightened. "Let me see the schedule again," she said briskly, and went through it item by item as if it were a shopping list. Flashing blue lights tend to be tiring on the eyes if you're stuck behind them for too long, and the monotonous da-da, da-da of the 2-tone siren was enough to inflict a lasting headache on the deaf. I felt a sense of relief when our police escort reached the imposing portals of the Richmond Hotel in Geneva, where a whole floor had been set aside for us for security. In her 3rd-floor suite, Sarah took me to the window and gestured down to the crowd below. I could make out TV cameras and sound crews, and saw the bunched figures of professionals who were there to work, not gawp. Always make friends with the press. As you get to know them, you'll find your favorites who will really look after you. Not when there's a major story bubbling away in the cauldron of world interest, I thought, wondering how soon Sarah would find out who her friends really were. For now, I was taught the rudiments of joining a royal entourage. The Duchess of York's engagements in the land of the cuckoo clock were not desperately taxing. A ball that evening at the Geneva Polo Club, which would bring valuable Swiss francs into her motor neuron charity. A polo match the following day, then home. Ronald and Jane gave me individual pep talks to bolster my confidence. I would be on show too, though strictly in the background. Still, there were formalities to be observed. Always keep 2 steps behind her, and be aware of where she is moving next, Jane instructed. She was an old hand at the game. Be ready to take any flowers or gifts she passes to me. The afternoon dragged by. We were trapped in the suite, in our gold-plated goldfish bowl, unable to be like ordinary human beings and walk down openly into the lobby for a stroll around the city. Fame has its price. Instead, Sarah ordered hamburgers and chips, which we shared around as a prelude to the smart food that would no doubt be on our plates in a few hours. The ball was in a huge marquee in the grounds of the club. As we arrived, Jane said hurriedly, "I forgot to tell you, just keep walking. Push past anyone who isn't officially being introduced. Make sure you're not parted from the Duchess, and keep smiling." "Oh," I said, "right. Thanks for telling me." She was right, too. Faces pushed eagerly towards us, and you knew that every one of them was there for a personal smile, and, if the fates were kind, even a word from the Duchess. Because I was in the entourage, people jumped to the natural conclusion that I was part of her circle and treated me as such. Sarah's speech went down well, as she had known it would, complimenting her host by being delivered in their language. A small point, but vital to the cause, which in this case was raising money for her pet charity. Back at the hotel, Sarah hurried to her suite to make a call to Stephen. He was there, and they had a chat, as Ronald put it, that left a smile on her face all the next day. I was awoken by little Beatrice, banging on my pillow with a small but determined fist. Sarah put her face round the door. What would I like for breakfast? Ronald was in the next room, finishing off his prune juice, his regular starter to the day. I muttered something about eggs and dozed off again. 20 minutes later, Sarah was back with a tray of eggs and toast. As I sat up in bed, still drowsy from sleep, I knocked the plate and one of the eggs slid off onto the carpet. "Oh," I said, peering over the side. But Sarah had raced into action, grabbed a towel from the bathroom, and wiped the mess clean. This is kind of I feel like some things are just filler, because it's like, all right, how does this propel the story forward? Before the big afternoon polo match, we had lunch in the hotel dining room. Little Beatrice was feeling particularly mischievous that day and started to pick bread rolls out of the basket and tear them apart, dropping the pieces on the tablecloth and on the floor. I noticed people at neighboring tables stop talking and start to stare. Sarah scolded her. "Beatrice, no." The little girl ignored. Sarah tried again. This time, Bea raised her small face petulantly and responded, "I'll do it if I want to." The crumbs were everywhere. That did it. Sarah got up out of her seat, grabbed her daughter's hand, and marched her resolutely across the dining room to an empty alcove on the far side. I watched Bea's face as her mother gave her a good talking to, first sullen, then apprehensive, then an eager nod. This is a flashback to my childhood. Man, being raised in the 90s was something else. Like, it is not like how I raised even my kids know. Like, I just, hey, and they're like, and I've never raised a hand to them. But it seems like most parents my age don't. Like, they're, "Oh, can you please not do that, sweetheart?" And I'm like, okay. Like, anyway, it drives me nuts. I remember being in restaurants and getting hauled out of the booth and my mother marching me to the bathroom and having a stern talking to and being like, "Bleh." Oh my gosh. I couldn't think what threat or inducement Sarah had made to her daughter. I knew that both she and Andrew abhorred corporal punishment. You don't need corporal punishment. That's what I've learned. You just have to, be willing to stand by your word. So it's like, even if it hurts you. So it's like, if you don't stop, we're going home. Then you got to be ready to go home. Like, you got to be ready to follow through. And sometimes that sucks, but it works. All right. That's my parenting lesson for the day. But when she brought Beatrice back to the table, the little girl raised her face, looked at us all in the eye as she spoke, and said in a loud voice, "I am very sorry for being so rude, and I will not do it again." Then she sat down to her seat and didn't say another word for the rest of the meal. I was curious. When the moment was right, I leaned over and asked Ronald, "What on earth did Sarah say to make Bea sound so grown up?" Ronald eyed his granddaughter across the table from beneath his bushy ginger brows. Quietly, he replied, Whenever Beatrice is naughty, Sarah always takes her aside and reminds her that she is a very special little girl and that everyone is watching her, and she must behave and cannot afford to act like a baby. Otherwise, Mummy would have to smack her in public, which would make Mummy even more angry when she got home. So is it worth it? Oh my gosh. How grown up does a child of 3 have to be, I wondered. But even Bea was still a... It says tiddler, but I think it means toddler. But even if Bea was still a toddler in the goldfish bowl, she seemed a happy little girl. As was her sister, equally noisy at our family table. Eugenie was only just over a year old, but possessed a powerful set of lungs for such a wee mite. Suddenly, she gave full vent to them. "Allison!" Her voice rang round the dining room. Nanny was horrified. "Don't be so familiar," Allison Wardle said sharply, at which the little tot looked suitably abashed, and we all giggled. We had become aware of 2 middle-aged American ladies trying to enjoy their own lunch nearby. As we got up to leave, Sarah walked over and apologized for the noise from our table. "We had to be in here, as there are a lot of photographers outside waiting to take pictures," she explained. "Oh, are you somebody famous?" asked one of the ladies. "We heard the Duchess of York is in town. Are you important as well?" Yes," said Sarah. "Actually, I am the Duchess, and those are the 2 princesses." There was a silence as the 2 tourists digested the information. At last, one nodded and said slowly, "Well, I guess you kind of look like her." Sarah dined out on that one for weeks. The polo afternoon went well, and we returned to the suite to pack for the trip home the next day. Sarah suddenly threw down a dress she was holding and turned to her father. "Dads, Why don't we stay here another night? I don't want to go back to that place. I just can't bear it. He'll be there. Was it this really Prince Anders she was talking about? Yes, it was. And she went home to him. All right, I'm struggling for some reason. So we'll read again tomorrow. The next chapter is called John Bryan. But we are really winding down because we're going to start chapter 22. Oh, pardon me. And there are 27 chapters. So, okay. Well, thank you so much for being with me. I'm going to upload this one, and the rest of the magazine is going to be uploaded as well. Currently, it says 1 hour, 9 minutes left. We'll see. It'll be there when it's there. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you again very soon. Bye. Oh, I hope you're getting lots of rest. Get some good naps in. Okay.